welcome back to the channel. You know who it is by now.
Jimothy.
So ladies and gents, it feels like an age since I have spoken to you guys. I haven't been feeling too good, on top of me in the middle of moving house. Yes, that's it, ladies and gents, I'm moving house, and if you've ever moved house, you'll know how stressful it is. But anyway, that has not stopped me from playing some Yu-Gi-Oh, and I've actually made it to locals today, which is good because I've been away for probably about a week and a half now, just because of illness and all that kind of stuff. But we are back, still playing Vanquish Soul. I haven't had a chance to really practice a new deck just because everything's just upside down, but I do have a spicy new mat. Shout out to Smartimus Prime, by the way, because he's the guy that put me on this mat. But anyway, we're gonna see how we do with locals. I'm assuming that I'm not gonna do too hot. Obviously my lists changed a little bit just because of the ban list, so we're gonna see how we get on, ladies and gents, and without wasting any more time, let's get straight into it. So coming into round one, ladies and gents, we are up against Branded, and it's been a while since I played against Branded. Obviously, just pure Branded is not really been a thing of late, just because Chimera Branded seems to be the best way to play Branded, just with the nature of the deck and with the negates coming out of the graveyard. It seems to be the way that people are playing Branded, but nevertheless, there was a Branded player here, and unfortunately, I don't feel like he had the best of hands. I think he went set 1 or set 2 pass, or T-set pass, on round 1. He did manage to establish a board later on. I think he got to a Albion, a Sanctifier Dragon, and the Albion, a Branded Dragon. But zone placement is something that you need to be a little bit cognizant of when you're playing against Vanquish Soul, just because Raisin can just pop things in the column, Panthera can just pop like spells and traps in the column. So it's vitally important that you play around it, because if you don't, you can get so much value as a Vanquish Soul player if they put monsters under the extra monster zone, for example, or if they're a heavy link spam deck. But nevertheless, round 1 I just decided to dwindle him out of resources, and then round 2 I don't believe he opened the best of hands, and I think that he had a set super polymerization, but I just didn't have enough field presence for him to make the best of use, well, the most use out of it. Basically, I think I had a heavy Borger on field, which you should be able to see in some of the replays. And I just kept burning him and just like poking him for game, and I got to a situation where he went to imperm, but he forgot he had a set card, which was the super poly, so he couldn't just imperm from hand, and that was all she wrote basically, because it would have just meant Borger burn, and then he would just attack her game next game. So it was a little bit of a difficult situation, but I managed to take that one. I believe it was like 2-0 or something like that. So yeah, Vanquish Soul still can do bits and pieces. It was a little bit fortunate, to be honest, but I will take those wins. I would definitely take those wins. So coming into round 2, ladies and gents, I'm up against Fabs, and he's playing Danger Dark World, and boy oh boy, it was not nice. So game 1, up against Danger Dark World, he managed to win die roll, and obviously I didn't know what it was on. Fabs tends to play a lot of different decks, a lot like myself, to be honest, and he just hand looped me for 5. It was absolutely ridiculous. Like, he beat me in probably about 6 minutes, if that, probably like even less than that. Like, I didn't really have an opportunity to interact with him at all. Like, he just looped 2 cards out of my hand twice, and then the third time with talents, and that was all she wrote, to be honest, and I just scooped it up. Going into game 2, this was a little bit more interesting. I managed to go first. He did start playing his turn, but he decided to activate card destruction, and I had sided in Dimension Shifter, and I was trying to gamble on drawing into the Dimension Shifter off Borger's effect, because I had a Prosperity in hand, but I decided not to use it because I went for the draw, hoping that I would kind of like draw into at least like a Dimension Shifter basically, and that would have kind of like stunned his turn out. However, because he resolved card destruction or hand destruction, I drew 7 cards. It was absolutely crazy, and then from those 7 cards I think I ashed the field spell ad, and that kind of like stumped him a little bit, and then he went to revive off Muckraker, and he didn't have any targets in graveyard, so he made the Muckraker for no reason basically, so he just had to go into battle phase, did a bit of damage, and then he set skill drain. Now this is a little bit of an important interaction. So I normal summon Raisin, he flipped skill drain, and then I chained Caesar Valius to take the Raisin off field so the search would still go through, and then on that I did activate Caesar Valius's effect to non-target pop a card on field, then I chain Borga to tag the Caesar Valius out, which allows you to play around skill drain, because skill drain negates the effects of face-up cards, so it doesn't stop you from activating them. So if those monsters are off the field, their effects can still resolve because they're no longer face up on the field, but cards or effects resolve where they're activated. So it's a little bit of a crazy little ruling that you just have to kind of like learn about. But I managed to get rid of the skill drain, and then it was just too much advantage from there. And then going into game 3, I don't think he drew the best of hands, and I did draw into double draw, which was a little bit unfortunate. Again, the Raisin zone like destruction did come up. So again, ladies and gents, it's always vitally important that if you are playing against Vanquish Soul, just make sure you're not placing your cards too much in tandem with the extra monster zone, because the Raisin will just get too much value. And just talking about that, there's another card that I'm thinking about adding into the deck, which is Iron Dragon Tomaten, for that reason, because you can just lock out one of the zones and normally you end up on Rock of the Vanquisher. So any link strategies, Infinibles for example, they just can't play. So vitally important that you kind of like just have that in mind, ladies and gents. But yeah, managed to take round 2 against Danger Dark World. Okay, so coming into round number 3, ladies and gents, I'm up against Chimera branded. This is the type of branded I'm used to seeing nowadays with the Chimera cards, which just absolutely plus you to infinity if you've got nothing to stop that deck. And I managed to just get absolutely mollywopped by them. So coming into game 1, obviously he managed to win the die roll. He set up a mad crazy board, and the funniest thing was I managed to somewhat clear his board until it got to the end phase, where he just activated a whole load of effects and managed to kind of like just bring himself straight back into the duel, and actually scooped it up in my own end phase, because I managed to clear his board. I think I Kurikara a couple of his monsters, and then he managed to summon Fallen of Albaz. I can't remember off what effect, but yeah, he managed to summon Fallen of Albaz, and then he managed to bring back one of his Chimera illusion monsters off the Chimera King of the Phantom Beast, which was a little bit annoying because it just meant that he just had his whole setup again for the next turn, which was just absolutely crazy. So I just decided to scoop that up. Going into game 2, now this is where a little bit of an interesting interaction took place, and it was kind of like my own fault for not recognizing it. No fault on my opponents as well. So did a few things. I didn't really see a way into Raisin. In fact, I could have potentially seen a way into Raisin, but I decided again to try and play the shifter route because I didn't have any cards in graveyard. I tried to just gamble and try and see if I could draw shifter off Heavy Borga's draws, which I knew was a little bit risky, but I'm actually considering taking shifter out for that reason. It is a little bit of a blowout, but I just can't seem to see. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I decided not to actually go into any of my extra deck monsters, which was a little bit of a mistake on my part. I should have definitely went into the Rock of the Vanquisher, but I decided to just leave Borga on field and just trying to play basically and just draw into shifter. I did have a whole load of cards in hand, but it just proved to be a little bit of a misplay on my part, just because I didn't see any interruptions, and he just managed to just combo off and just keep playing for a load of interruptions. Chimera fusion a couple of times, branded fusion. It was just absolutely crazy, and I managed to survive a turn. But then what the interaction was, ladies and gents, I dust deviled his King of the Phantom Beast to turn off all the effects in the graveyard. However, my opponent did Chimera Fusion into the Illusion monster, well, the Illusion Beast or whatever it is, the one that kind of like negates their effects and turns their attack to 0. And he couldn't actually go into that monster because I'd already Book of Mooned his Chimera King of the Phantom Beast, or Dust Deviled it. So it's not actually treated as Gazelle King of the Mythical Beast, so he couldn't have went into that monster anyway. And I only realized that after I'd scooped it up, which was a little bit of my part, a little bit of fault on my part, to be honest, because that actually swung the game. I potentially could have come back into it a little bit. I did have a Kurikara in hand, and I think the only monster he could have realistically made with the Chimera Fusion would have been Dragos Tapalia or something along those lines, or even like Magnum the Reliever, which again, that probably would have just played into Kurikara anyway. But it's neither here nor there. I managed to lose this one, got absolutely KO'd. Like, the deck's just plussed into infinity, and I just put big monsters on board that just attack for game basically. So he had all the answers, I didn't. So yeah, managed to lose that one, and yeah, on to the next one. So coming into the fourth and final round, ladies and gents, I am up against Infinibles, and just looking at my card sleeves, I actually need to just change those sleeves. The sleeves look so battered. But anyway, up against Infinibles, lost the die roll once again, managed to go second, and this was a hell of a grindy game one, and I don't know what I was thinking, to be honest. I probably should have scooped a little bit earlier, but I just wanted to see if I could crack the board. So he just set up, he more or less went full combo. We started off with Neo Space Connector, which was a little bit rough because I had to burn my ash on it, because if he decided to look at my hand, he would have just got perfect hand knowledge and just been able to play around like some of the things that I had in my hand. However, I did set up a board. I did somewhat manage to clear it with Kirikara once again. That card's just been doing like overtime, to be honest. But yeah, I managed to clear some of his field, but that deck is just so consistent, and the way that it's been built, or the way that players are playing it, you can kind of like just build your initial board once again, even if it gets cracked, because you've just got so many extenders, so many pieces of interaction, so much consistency. It's really easy to kind of like rebuild the field that you make, and it's something that I really value, because I like kind of like mid-range decks that can kind of like combo off a little bit, but then still have a little bit of a follow-up, and I feel like Infinible definitely fulfills that category. But in saying that, I decided to scoop game one. I left it too long, and I decided to scoop it up. I just couldn't, I was too behind in card advantage. Going into game two, managed to go first. I did not open the best of hands, but I did open a couple of hand traps. So I managed to stick a Fenrir on field, and then search another copy of Fenrir, which proved to be crucial, to be honest. I did have a Bow as well as a Ash Blossom, so that effectively kind of like turned off his field, because a Fenrir banished one of his monsters, and then I ashed something, and then a Bowed, I think, Heritage of the Chalice, and that allowed me to buy enough time to draw into there can be only one, which basically won me the game, to be honest. So he summoned a monster, I flipped TC and that was all she wrote. Just Fenrir control from there on out. I did not see a starter, did not see a way to Raisin, no prosperity, just nothing, just literally Fenrir control. So game one, I think one of the like little interactions he had was he tried to special Gearfried, and then on resolution I just managed Immortal Phoenix Gearfried face down with Fenrir, and that was literally all she wrote. So managed to scoop it up. Going into game three, he decided to go first. He just went absolutely ham, full combo. However, the crucial moment was, because we'd played so long in game one, and game two was somewhat long, he actually burnt himself for 1200 damage with Museum, which proved to be the lethal damage, because time got called in my main phase one. So as I was like comboing, trying to play through his board, I was already up on life, to be honest, and that's just basically what killed him. So I managed to win the game three, finishing the tournament with a record of X-1, which was just yeah, very interesting. So on to the next one, ladies and gents. Okay, ladies and gents, we are back after another successful locals, to be honest. So I managed to go X1, but I finished fifth. I think it's because I got paired down for some reason. I don't know. I don't think anybody dropped, but I got paired down, and that was actually the game that I lost. So I ended up in fifth position, which is a bit frustrating, but at the same time, it is what it is, and I only lost one game. My pairings matchups were some wild ass matchups. Branded, Dark World, Chimera branded, and Infinibles. Infinible was a tough match. I probably would have lost that if it wasn't for the fact that time got called. We had a grindy game one. I ended up scooping that. Managed to win game two. This was last round as well. I managed to win game two with Fenrir and there can be only one, which was annoying for my opponent, but it is what it is. It's life. And then I lost against Chimera branded. I just got out resourced. I feel like my hand trap ratio in Vanquish Soul probably needs to change, because I've had to change up my list a little bit. I've incorporated Parallel Exceed, which I did not see once all day. Literally 3 of in the deck, didn't see. I'm at 43 cards, with the extra 3 cards being Prosperity. So even when I was digging for cards, couldn't see. So I don't really know how good it is, but I do feel like having some access to Abyss Dweller, especially in this format, is probably going to be it's going to pay dividends basically. But all in all, another successful locals. I was saying to Fabs was at locals, I was like, you know what, I really like Vanquish Soul, but the boards that it puts up going first are just not threatening enough by itself. It's probably the best way to play the deck with the number of hand traps and tech cards that you can incorporate, but because it is Vanquish Soul, it is what it is. There's not enough of a board presence, and I always say this: any mass removal, Black Rose Dragon, I don't know, just Dark Hole, Raigeki, anything like that, you're so vulnerable. It's like, it's unreal how vulnerable you are, unless you've got like access to Caesar and you can make him unaffected. And even that is a risky play anyway, because you're playing into talents, and talents is everywhere, as well as thrust. And I believe, like, playing against that card, I realized that that card's a little bit unfair, just because you get punished for playing hand traps for trying to play the game. So I was playing against like Dark Worlds, they talents me by giving me a monster, which I thought was crazy. So I just got completely hand ripped, as well as playing against the Infinible player. Like, he was going full combo, couldn't stop him, didn't see Droll, had a solitary Ash Blossom, and he thrusted for talents, and it was just, I was just like, nah, this ain't fair. But it is what it is. It's life, it's life, it's Yu-Gi-Oh! I managed to win most of my games, and all in all, Vanquish Soul, a very, very solid deck. I feel like if people aren't preparing for the deck, and you definitely can time, or you know your interactions, you'll be very successful with the deck, just because it requires a lot of foresight to play. And I feel like that's the reason why I like the deck. But if you don't, you'll just get mollywopped. It just is what it is. But anyway, ladies and gents, another successful locals, and we find ourselves at the end of another video. As always, if you do like this content, you know what to do by now. Hit that like button, share, subscribe, all of that beautiful good stuff, and I will definitely see you guys on the next video. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.